And we're joined now by Rich Apostolik. He is the chairman and the CEO of the Global Association for Risk Professionals. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much. And when we look at risk and we look at the assessment of risk, how do you assess that risk given the current dynamics in the market?
That's a very, very interesting question, and it's very broad-based. I mean, it's not just an energy-based issue, but it's an issue for financial services on a global basis. If you look at banks, what the banking industry is going through, asset management world, when you're looking at things such as sustainable investing, when you're looking at, in a sense, what's happening now is a paradigm shift in many ways. The shift is taking place in terms of just operational risk. The operational risk area of risk management now is taking a front seat, you might say, in terms of how risk managers are operating, what the issues are they're dealing with. Examples would be things like counterparty risk in a volatile marketplace is really, really difficult to assess. Other areas such as vendor risk or third and fourth party risk, those areas have now come to the forefront. You got concentration risk, you got liquidity risk. There are a variety of areas that even a couple of years ago didn't come to top of mind, you might say. They were not areas that people were staying up at night thinking that much about. Now, everything has changed. A lot of that has changed. It's a direct result, frankly, of geopolitical risks that have been happening over the last year or two, particularly with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That has caused some concerns and has caused volatility in the marketplace, which has a direct impact, by the way, in the energy market, obviously, and how people are dealing with energy risks and the volatility in that particular marketplace. And, you know, how are they going to assess that risk? What is the data out there that they can utilize to model that risk, which is a big part of energy risk, or excuse me, of risk management as a whole, but energy risk also. So I can tell you it's a very, very interesting. There's nothing in risk management right now that is not interesting, you might say, and it's very, very dynamic. And it's an area I think that is not going to rest, you might say, on its laurels for quite some time.
When you look at the global economic outlook, I mean, how important is that for risk professionals, you know, when they're looking at the energy market to take account of what's going on in terms of the economic global outlook?
The global outlook is absolutely imperative in terms of assessing any type of risk. Now, energy is just one sector, you might say, in the overall financial marketplace, but it's a very, very important sector. Right now, it's front and center. Everybody is talking about energy. If you look at the inflationary impact that we're having now, a lot of that is driven by the rise in energy prices. And so the question is, how do you deal with that longer term as well as shorter term? And, you know, geopolitical pieces of this are very, very important. It's all about energy security. And countries are now looking at energy security as a major thing that they have to be concerned about, not only for their own people, but also the energy security of any one country does have a global impact. So this whole idea of globalization has come into play, and technology has played a big part in that also. So there isn't, I don't think, any one factor that you can sort of look at and say, you know, this is the most important factor. But if you go through all the factors, you got inflation, stagflation, you got third-party risk, you can get into technology and the disintermediation that technology is now playing in the financial services industry. All these are playing a huge role in how risk management comes into play, both in the energy sectors as well as in the financial sector as a whole.
Now, a lot of focus, of course, over the years on the environment and on climate. Talk to me about the climate risk, you know, in terms of how the market is dealing with this, really.
I think climate risk is still, dealing with climate risk, it's still somewhat in its infancy. I think it's still in its early stages, and a number of the reasons for that is there's a lack of data in order to assess what it is that you're doing and what would be your next steps. When you're trying to develop scenario analyses, all right, you're looking out 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years. No organizations have models that look out that far. And so we're sort of learning as we're going along, trying to figure out what's the best way forward.
And clearly, I mean, in terms of risk professionals, what they know is the financial market and know that well. But is this the main concern at the end of the day in terms of the financial risk that is there, given everything else? Or is it now a situation where we need to be looking a bit broader and wider?
I think you have to look broader. I mean, financial risk is obviously very, very important. It impacts people's lives at a very, very micro level, as well as at a macro level. But I think the financial risk of what's going on in terms of climate is very, very material and significant. In terms of longer term, where are we going to go with it? I think it's still up in the air at the moment. I mean, there's trade-offs now that are taking place. You have a look at things such as, security or energy security in terms of, okay, my energy security in my country, I have a duty to my citizens for energy security. At the same time, how is that going to impact if I don't handle that in a way that's appropriate for my citizens? They're going to be negatively impacted, right? And then that impact, because of globalization, is going to go beyond. So there's going to be a ripple effect. Potentially that could go beyond just my borders. So the impact and the concern is more than just a specific country or specific region. It has to be more global. Climate's global.
And talk to me about the role of the International Energy Forum, and particularly, in terms of that role with the Global Association for Risk Professionals coming together, to have regular conversations.
I think this is a great forum. I mean, this is the first of its kind, and you couldn't have asked for better timing for something like this. Bringing together academics, bringing together practitioners, and in some cases regulators, is very, very important. It's to have this type of dialogue in an open environment where you can debate and be very frank about the issues that are out there is something I think that should continue on. And we're doing this in the financial services industry as a whole, and energy, I think it's very, very important.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
You're welcome.